Welcome back, everyone. We are at 1917, and not the movie, but the year. The year, of course, was inspired by the movie. Did I say the year was inspired by the movie? You know what I mean. Let's jump in. Epic history, World War I, Lego. I think this is the year United States jumps in. Pretty sure.
In 1916, World War I became a war of attrition. Both sides began to focus less on winning victory on the battlefield than grinding down the enemy, and inflicting such enormous losses they would be forced to surrender. In 1917, the strategy will push Europe's major powers to the brink of collapse.
The Somme.
Germany knows it will lose a long war of attrition against the Allies, who have greater resources. So its leaders gamble. They resume unrestricted submarine warfare, believing their U-boats can cut off Britain's food imports by sea and starve the country into surrender within 6 months. But the new shoot-on-sight tactics mean neutral American ships will inevitably be caught in the crossfire, risking America joining the war on the Allied side. Just 2 days into the campaign, the SS Housatonic, an American steamer carrying wheat from Galveston, Texas to England, is sunk by a U-boat.
Big mistake.
The British then pass to the US government a telegram they've intercepted from German Foreign Secretary Arthur Zimmermann to the German ambassador in Mexico. Germany is encouraging Mexico to attack America if America and Germany end up at war. The so-called Zimmermann telegram puts yet more pressure on US President Wilson to declare war on Germany.
I really want to know, you guys that really have studied this prior and have a little bit of ability to kind of foresee some things. What do you guys think in percentiles? 0% chance, 50% chance, 99% chance. Without the interception of this telegram, without continuation, imagine it went through untapped. There's no way we heard about it. There's no way the UK, the British people heard about it. Would Mexico have done anything? Do you guys think Mexico would have tried it? Of course, that would be a bad decision by Mexico. Really bad decision. They would not win. It would not be good. They would probably lose territory. They'd probably lose a lot of territory. Unless we were gracious. But interesting. Very interesting, huh? Of course, Russia's going to quit midway, or towards the end.
In Russia, enormous casualties and bread shortages lead to riots and revolution.
Yep.
The Tsar abdicates. A provisional government takes charge, pledging to continue the war. But at the front, Russian troops begin to desert en masse. After a string of German provocations, the US finally declares war on Germany. It brings immense resources to the Allied cause, but they will take many months to mobilize. And the German gamble of unrestricted submarine warfare may still pay off. April is the U-boats' most successful month of the war. They sink 886,000 tons of Allied shipping, an average of 17 ships a day, all packed with urgently needed food and supplies.
17 a day? That's 17 times 30. What is that? 410 ships a month?
Britain will face starvation if the U-boats are not defeated soon. On the Western Front, the British launched the Battle of Arras, a diversion to support a major upcoming French offensive. After heavy fighting, Canadian troops seize the high ground of Vimy Ridge. It's a limited Allied victory, but costs 150,000 Allied casualties to 130,000 German.
Insane.
Above the trenches, the First Air War has reached new levels of sophistication and deadliness. Reconnaissance aircraft are crucial for spotting enemy
Imagine he drops that camera.
positions and directing artillery fire onto them.
Wow.
Scout aircraft or fighters try to shoot them down before they can execute their mission.
Oh, it's a silent movie.
New models of aircraft are developed every few months. But that spring, the superiority of German aircraft leads to heavy Allied losses in what becomes known as Bloody April.
So Germany's winning the they have naval superiority with their U-boats. They have air superiority with their fighter pilots. They're in a good position. And Russia's out of the war, so they can revert this. They're in a really good spot.
3 days after the fall of Vimy Ridge, French General Robert Nivelle launches his main offensive. Expectations are high. But after initial success, the advance bogs down, and casualties quickly mount on both sides. The apparently senseless losses cause morale in the French army to collapse. Whole units mutiny, refusing to attack. General Nivelle is sacked as French commander-in-chief and replaced by General Pétain, hero of Verdun, who promises no more suicidal attacks. That summer, at Messines Ridge, the British tunnel under the German lines and detonate 19 enormous mines under the enemy position. It's the largest man-made explosion in history to date, and paves the way to a
Look how deep that crater is, like 30 feet deep, 50 feet deep.
brilliant but highly local British victory.
God.
In Greece, King Constantine, who has favoured neutrality, is forced to abdicate, and Greece joins the Allies. Russia's provisional government orders a...
Right. Is King Constantine the family of Mountbatten? Or is that later? Like in the 30s?
Russia's provisional government orders a new attack, but the July offensive is a disaster. The morale and discipline of the Russian army has collapsed. It can no longer be relied on to fight, and the Central Powers' counterattack is almost unopposed. At sea, the Allies begin to group their merchant ships into convoys, which sail under naval escort.
Smart.
The
finally.
new system leads to a steady fall in losses. The tide is turning in the U-boat war. As discontent with the war grows in Germany, the German parliament, the Reichstag, passes a peace resolution, calling for a peace of understanding and reconciliation. It's ignored by the German High Command, which now effectively rules the country as a military dictatorship.
Interesting.
In Belgium, the British launched their major offensive of 1917, the Third Battle of Ypres. It will be remembered as Passchendaele. Heavy shelling, rain and broken irrigation channels turned the battlefield into a sea of mud. In these impossible conditions, all hopes of a breakthrough soon fade. The attack is called off after 3 months, by which point the British have suffered 240,000 casualties, the Germans 200,000.
These numbers are insane. There seems to be no breaking point in this trench warfare yet.
On the Italian front, at the 11th Battle of the Isonzo, Italian and Austro-Hungarian forces batter each other into exhaustion. There are 150,000 Italian casualties, 100,000 Austro-Hungarian.
Everywhere. Numbers. 6 figures. Everywhere.
That year, 1917, the list of Allied nations grows. Brazil, Liberia, China, and Siam all declare war on Germany.
Dang, Germany is up.
As a result of German U-boat attacks, or to curry favour with the Allies. China will contribute many thousands of labourers working for the Allies in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia.
Okay. Wait, what's going on in the Middle East?
That year in the Middle East, British forces avenge their 1916 humiliation at Kut by defeating the Ottoman Turks and marching on to occupy Baghdad.
It's huge.
British forces in Egypt advance across the Sinai Desert, but are thrown back by Ottoman forces at the First and Second Battles of Gaza. In July, Arab rebels capture the strategic Ottoman port of Aqaba. They are accompanied by a British military advisor, Captain T.E. Lawrence, better known as
Lawrence of Arabia.
Lawrence of Arabia. That autumn, British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour issues the Balfour Declaration, expressing support for the creation of a national home for the Jews in Palestine.
That won't cause any problems 110 years later.
The aim is to rally Jewish support for the Allies, but the declaration contradicts existing pledges to Arab leaders. In October, the British finally win at Gaza, clearing the way for an advance into Palestine. 6 weeks later, General Allenby leads British troops into Jerusalem, ending 400 years of Ottoman rule.
That's crazy. Caporetto, is that Italy?
With Russian forces in disarray, Germany is able to move troops from the east to the Italian front. At the Battle of Caporetto, they help to smash through the Italian army, advancing 70 miles and taking 250,000 prisoners. British and French divisions, desperately needed on the Western Front, have to be redeployed to shore up the line.
Winning the war right now.
In Russia, a second revolution brings Lenin's Bolshevik party to power. He is determined to end Russia's involvement in the war. In France, Georges Clemenceau becomes Prime Minister. Nicknamed the Tiger, he promises total war and total victory.
So they all say.
But for the Allies in late 1917, final victory looks uncertain. Russia has stopped fighting. French armies are recovering from mutiny. The Italian front has almost collapsed. And American reinforcements still seem a long way off.
For
the time being, the British are the only effective Allied force in the field. So the British attack at Cambrai with the first major tank assault in history. On the first day, nearly 400 tanks spearhead an advance of several miles through German defences.
See, this is what has to happen. Innovation for this trench warfare.
But then the tanks break down or are knocked out. The Germans rush in reinforcements, and the gains are lost. Finland declares independence from Russia.
There you go.
Romania, isolated by the Russian collapse, signs an armistice with the Central Powers. 6 days later, Russia also signs an armistice.
Russia's got to get their stuff together. They don't even know what ideology they are right now.
The Allied Eastern Front is no more.
Nope. Yeah, no.
1917 has seen one major Allied power, Russia, knocked out of the war. But the arrival of a fresh new ally, America. Germany knows only military victory can now save it from being overwhelmed by Allied resources, and begins planning one last massive onslaught for the spring of 1918.
Yeah, I mean, Russia kind of did it to themselves. They didn't really knock them out of the war. They kind of did that through attrition and ideology. So, like, their people did that. But that was that was cooking for a long time anyway. The Balkans are not really anything. Ottoman area is kind of interesting, kind of go back and forth, especially at Gaza. Crazy what, the Jewish thing, that's just insane, isn't it? But at the same time, what land could you have promised? It's just that's a whole nother can of worms itself. It's just weird. Nevertheless, guys, we're about to jump into 1918 and the final year of the war. I can't wait. Can't wait for this thing to be over. Too many lives lost. We gotta end this. We gotta end this war. Bring on the Americans. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.